Okay, so in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to put in curtain walls and use them in, and use curtain walls in your project. Now, the term curtain wall, as it's pertained to Revit, can be a little confusing. So if you click on the wall tool and then you scroll down to where it says curtain wall, it's basically the glass mullion system. However, in kind of architecture and construction, when you say curtain wall, that typically refers to any wall that's not any exterior wall that's not structural, and is basically just there to be a barrier between exterior interior space, and more of like a weather barrier to keep people in and weather out from getting, and weather outside from getting inside the building. So that's kind of like what a curtain wall is in the general sense, in architectural terms and construction terms. But in Revit, they say a curtain wall is the glass mullion system. Because in a lot of times, usually when you see the glass mullion system kind of wall, it's most likely a curtain wall because this is never going to be a structural wall with the glass and the mullion system. So a lot of times when you look at high-rise buildings that are all glass, that's usually when it's steel construction, and then the curtain wall frames the outside as the exterior barrier. So that's why Revit kind of labels them as a curtain wall, because in most circumstances, that's where a curtain wall is going to be used. But again, it's not all, a regular wall can be a curtain wall as well if it's not structural and it's an exterior barrier wall. So curtain walls are pretty much just like regular walls to put in. And I did put in flooring, so we can start to like kind of draw it in there. But what I want to show you first is what the difference is between the three types. So the first type, called curtain wall 1, it comes in just as a piece of glass right here. And then what you can do, if you go to edit type, you can start to edit the horizontal grid. If it has a fixed distance, a fixed number. The vertical grid as well, you can do the same thing, and then start to assign mullion types to the different types of mullions. Or the other thing that you can do is, if under the architecture tab where it says curtain grid, you can start to add segments. So where it says all segments, it'll put in vertical grids or horizontal grids if you're here. And then you see, once you put in one, once you have one in, you can click on it, and then you get the dimensions, so you can start to space them out if you have certain spaces in mind that you may want. Same thing for the horizontal. Once you put one in and multiple in, you get dimensions. You also see with the curtain grid, so this all segment is the full one, but if I have one segment, this is where I can just put it there and there. Or all except picked, I can do that, and then not pick the middle. So that's kind of like what that does. And then once you have them in, you can start to add mullions by using the mullion tool. And then either you can do per grid line, so it would do the whole grid line, just one segment of the grid, or all grid lines will put it everywhere. And again, here you can select what type of mullion it is. So if you wanted to do just like the corner, you can do just the corner. If I undo, so say you had like a corner mullion with an L, you can do that there. That's for if you have a mullion system that turns and has a side here and then a side running here. And then you can add it, the regular mullions, here or something, or the rest of the grid lines, if you wanted to. So that's what the curtain wall 1 is. Exterior glazing is basically the same thing, except the mullions, the grid lines start to come in already set up. So you can see here, if you click on edit this, if you go to edit this, the fixed distance for the horizontal, it's the layout for the vertical and horizontal grids stop to be populated, but again, you can always go in and change those as well for every, if it's a number instead of a fixed distance that you want. Again, you can assign mullions to them. And again, this works like other families, like doors and stuff. So you can see here, this is an exterior glazing type. If you want to duplicate it to create multiple, you can. And then, the same functions work with the curtain grid and the mullion tool to add more grids. You can click on one. But you can see now these are, so since these grids come in as like a predefined set for the wall type, you can see when I click on this grid, it's locked. So I can't move it, and if I try to change the dimension, it won't go because it's locked. But if you unlock it, or unpin it, I should say, now you can start to move it, by dragging, or if you want to type in a dimension, you can move it that way. And again, you can always add more mullions to it by using the grid if you have like a special circumstance where you have to do something like that. And then, as you can probably guess, a storefront has everything set up where the grids and the mullions come in automatically. And then if you go to edit type, you can see the mullions are already put in and the grids set up. And again, you can duplicate it to make multiple storefront types. And as I said, you can, click on, you can click on a grid and unpin it, so you can move, that grid if you ever needed to do like a custom one. You can, delete stuff as well. So like if I click on this grid line, you see I have add remove segments. So if I click this middle one, it'll take out that segment and the mullion for it. So now this becomes one big piece of glass right here compared to the rest of them. So you can see it's like a little bit different. Whereas I could just delete, so I could click on that mullion, unpin it, and delete it. But you can see how it's still two separate pieces of glass. This is where you would want to tab, so you hover over the grid line and then remove that segment, so you get one piece of glass there. So it's cleaned up. So that's the difference between the curtain walls. The three types of curtain walls that come within Revit. And obviously, they're really pretty much all the same, except obviously, a storefront is more predefined, where you might know the dimensions of the spaces or the number that you want, and you can just enter them as there. And then the exterior glazing is kind of the same, where you probably know the spacing and everything, but maybe you have multiple mullion types in certain locations, so you want to manually add in the mullions. And then the curtain wall is more of a custom wall that you want to do. The bad thing that I will say, that you can see, I can show you here, is you cannot do angled mullions or circular angled grids or a circular grid pattern. As you can see here, I can click on it, but if I try to rotate it, it won't rotate. And even if I actually unpin it and try to rotate it, it won't rotate. So if there is an instance where you want to do a rectangular mullion, a circular mullion, or maybe an angled mullion, or grid line, I should say, to put a mullion on, that's probably where I would just put in a glass. Let me just add in a new piece of glass. I would just use the curtain wall 1 to put in a glass. And then, like a wall, you can edit its profile, and this goes for all three types. You can always edit their profile. But like, say if you had like an angled kind of thing here. Oops. Want to make sure that's closed. So you can edit the profile of it so it becomes a glass. And then this is where I would use the model in place, component model in place, and then you can create your own mullions by model them in place and then you could do an angled one if you want one that's angled or circular or something like that. Maybe you have a curtain wall that's like maybe like a hexagon shape or something like that. If it's a crazy shape that you want to do different mullions to, you can edit the profile, of just like a curtain wall one type wall type, and then customly create the mullions themselves. You can, and then also for the other one, for the other types, you can create a custom profile. So if I put in a storefront, you can see here I can edit the profile. So I could get an angular path if I want, an angular shape if I want. But you'll notice when it updates the grid, it stays with that grid pattern. Whatever setup, whatever setups here for distance or number, it stays with that, and then it'll create like smaller ones here. So it will never, it'll never deviate from that system. So like even if I take this out and go with a is that 6 sides? So 6 is hexagon, I think. You can see that it's still gonna go, with whatever this shape is, and it won't angle. I mean, the only one it will angle is the outer ones, whatever the sides are. But inside you can't get angular on the inside. For the grid lines, I should say. So you can't, like if you look at it from the front view, only these exterior ones can be will angle. Interior, you can't get like an interior system to be angled. Like if you wanted to do like a cross pattern for the grids, that's something that you'd have to create the mullions themselves as model in place, as I mentioned. Okay. So I'm actually going to end this video here, and continue on in the next one is I'll start to show how you can actually put these, within a building, itself.